The bus doors hissed open just as thunder rolled across downtown Chicago. Rainwater streamed along the sidewalk, turning the city lights into shimmering rivers of gold and blue. Commuters hurried aboard with soaked umbrellas, tired faces, and paper coffee cups clutched tightly against the cold morning wind. Bus route 27. 9:43 a.m. Every weekday, always the same. Mia Bennett climbed aboard with damp curls escaping her ponytail and her navy blue nurse's scrubs hidden beneath an oversized gray hoodie. She looked exhausted, because she was. 12-hour emergency room shifts had a way of stealing sleep while leaving compassion untouched. Still, she smiled at the driver. "Morning, Frank." The elderly driver grinned. "Morning, Nurse Sunshine." She laughed. "You keep calling me that. You keep earning it." The passengers behind her shuffled impatiently. Mia apologized before making her way toward the middle of the nearly full bus. She already knew what she would find. Or rather, who? Seat 17. Left side. Window seat. Always occupied. He was already there. Exactly like every morning for the last 6 months. Black wool coat. Dark charcoal sweater. A paperback novel resting quietly in his hands. No headphones. No phone. No unnecessary movement. He simply watched the rain slide across the glass while reading another book. When Mia reached the row, he looked up. Without a word, he closed the novel, stood, and stepped into the aisle, making room for her, like he always did. "Thank you." His voice remained calm. "Good morning, Mia." She blinked. "You remembered my name. You told me 3 months ago." "I did?" "You were carrying 3 coffees." She laughed softly. "Oh, I remember now." He nodded. "You dropped one," and blamed the sidewalk. She covered her face. "I hoped you'd forgotten that. I remember most things." She smiled as she sat beside him. "I've noticed." The bus pulled away from the curb. Rain tapped gently against the windows. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Silence never felt awkward between them. It simply existed, comfortably, like 2 people sharing the same sunrise without needing to explain why. Eventually, Mia glanced toward the book resting in his lap. "What are you reading today?" He turned the cover toward her. "The Old Man and the Sea." "Hemingway? You've read it?" She nodded. "Twice." "And?" He waited. "It's not really about the fish." A faint smile appeared. "No, it isn't." She looked outside. "I think it's about refusing to become someone you're not." He studied her quietly. "Interesting." "What?" "Most people say perseverance." "You disagree?" "I think both can be true." Another silence. The rain continued falling. Across town, 3 black SUVs sped through downtown traffic. Inside the lead vehicle, FBI Special Agent Rebecca Collins stared at surveillance photographs spread across her lap. One photograph showed a luxurious penthouse. Another, an underground casino. The third, a blurry security image of a tall man in a black coat entering a city bus. She tapped the image. "We lost him here." Her partner frowned. "Again?" "Again." "How?" "No cameras. No bodyguards. No digital footprint." The driver glanced into the rearview mirror. "You think he's actually riding public transportation?" Rebecca answered without hesitation. "I think Adriano DeLuca enjoys proving that no one understands him." She looked back at the photograph. "If I were hiding in plain sight, I'd do exactly this." Back on bus 27, Mia stared out the rain-covered window. "Can I ask you something?" "You usually do." She smiled. "You never answer much about yourself." "What would you like to know? What do you do?" He thought for a moment. "I solve problems." She laughed. "That's vague." "It is." "What kind of problems?" "The kind people can't solve alone." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds expensive." "It usually is." She looked at him suspiciously. "Lawyer?" "No." "Consultant?" "No." "Private investigator." His smile almost appeared. "Interesting guess." "I'm close?" "No." She sighed dramatically. "You never make this easy." "I wasn't aware it was a game." "It absolutely is." "And what's the prize?" She looked toward the coffee cup, warming her hands. I finally figure out what you do. He considered that. I'm afraid you'd be disappointed. She looked at him again, really looked. There was something strange about him. Not dangerous. Not exactly. Just different. His clothes were expensive, but never flashy. His hands looked like they belonged to someone who had worked hard years ago. Yet now, they carried no visible scars except one thin white line across his knuckles. His posture remained perfectly relaxed. Still, every time someone walked past their seat, his eyes noticed. Every exit, every mirror, every passenger, always watching. Never obvious. She had seen that kind of awareness before. In soldiers, police officers, trauma sergent, people who expected the worst because they'd survived it before. You were in the military. He turned toward her. What makes you think that you notice everything? That's hardly unique. You also sit where you can see every exit? He didn't answer. You never let anyone stand behind you. Still silence. You check reflections instead of turning your head. His gaze lingered on her for several seconds. Finally, you're very observant. I work in an emergency room. I imagine you do. We notice little things. He nodded once. So do I. She smiled triumphantly. So I was right. No, you weren't. The bus stopped at Belmont Avenue. Several passengers climbed aboard. Among them, a crying little girl clutching a stuffed rabbit, maybe 6 years old. Her mother searched frantically through her purse. I'm sorry. I think I left my transit card at home. The driver sighed. Ma'am, I can't. A quiet hand reached forward. A black transit card tapped the payment machine. Bape. The fare cleared. The woman turned around. Oh my God. Thank you. Adriano simply nodded. No problem. The little girl smiled shyly. Thank you, mister. He inclined his head. You're welcome. The child noticed the novel in his lap. My daddy reads that. He has good taste. She giggled. The mother hurried away. Mia watched the exchange. You do that a lot. What? Pay for strangers. They needed help. You didn't even hesitate. He looked back toward the rain. Neither did you. She frowned. What do you mean? Last Tuesday, the homeless veteran. She froze. You remember that? You bought him breakfast. He was hungry. You also gave him your umbrella. She shrugged. It was raining. So? I still had my hoodie. He smiled. So? Neither realized how much they had just revealed about themselves. Across the aisle, an elderly man pretending to read the newspaper quietly lowered it. A tiny earpiece rested inside his left ear. His voice barely moved. Boss appears relaxed. Pause. The woman arrived on schedule. Another pause. No unusual activity. He folded the newspaper. The headline read, City official found dead. Hidden beneath the paper, a compact pistol rested inside a shoulder holster. 3 other passengers were doing exactly the same thing. A young mother near the back, a college student wearing headphones, a construction worker covered in fake dust. None of them knew each other. Officially, unofficially, they had all sworn to die before allowing anyone to harm the man sitting beside the nurse. Mia never noticed, because Adriano had ordered one rule above all others. She must never know. The bus crossed the Chicago River. Morning light finally pierced the clouds. Golden reflections danced across the water. For just a moment, the entire city looked peaceful. Mia sighed. I wish mornings always felt like this. He looked toward the skyline. They don't? She shook her head. The hospital reminds you pretty quickly. He didn't ask what she had seen. She appreciated that. Instead, he quietly asked, Coffee after work? The question surprised even him. He hadn't planned to ask. Mia blinked. You mean outside the bus? A rare hesitation crossed his face. If you're uncomfortable, I'm not. She smiled. I just didn't expect you to ask. Neither did I. She laughed softly. I get off at 4 today. I know. She tilted her head. You know? You mentioned it. When? Last Thursday. She laughed again. You really do remember everything. No. His voice became almost inaudible. only the things that matter. For the first time, their eyes lingered just a little too long. Neither looked away immediately. Neither realized that, 2 blocks behind them, an unmarked FBI SUV had just turned onto the same street. Special Agent Rebecca Collins stared through binoculars at Bus 27. Her heartbeat quickened. "There," she whispered. "I found him." She didn't know his exact seat yet. She couldn't see his face. Only the silhouette of a man in a black coat sitting beside a woman in gray scrubs. Then she gave the order that would change both of their lives forever. "Do not lose that bus." The black FBI SUV stayed exactly 3 vehicles behind Bus 27. Not closer, not farther. Special Agent Rebecca Collins never blinked. Through binoculars, she watched the bus weave through the damp streets of Chicago while another surveillance team monitored every intersection ahead. For almost 7 years, she had hunted one ghost, Adriano DeLuca, a man with no verified fingerprints, no official photographs, no digital life. He ruled Chicago's underworld like an invisible king. Every witness disappeared. Every informant died. Every investigation collapsed. Yet every weekday morning, for exactly 32 minutes, he vanished from his empire. Rebecca whispered into her radio, "Whatever he's doing on that bus, it's important." Inside Bus 27, nobody noticed they were being followed. Least of all Mia. She rested her forehead lightly against the cool window, watching raindrops race each other across the glass. Chicago looked different through rain. Less rushed, less cruel, almost forgiving. Beside her, Adriano quietly closed his novel. "You look tired." She smiled without opening her eyes. "I look exhausted. You worked overnight. 12 hours. What happened?" She hesitated. Most people asked because they wanted dramatic stories. He asked because he genuinely wanted to know. She finally sighed. "A little boy." He waited patiently. 8 years old. "Accident." Silence. "He didn't make it." Adriano lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry." She nodded slowly. "The worst part isn't losing patience. What is? Telling their families." Her voice became almost a whisper. "No one teaches you how." The bus continued rolling through the rain. Adriano looked out the opposite window. "When I was 14, he stopped." The word surprised him. He almost never spoke about himself. "When I was 14, I lost someone too." Mia turned toward him. "I'm sorry." He nodded once. "It changes you." "It does." Neither elaborated. Neither needed to. Some grief speaks fluently through silence. 3 rows behind them, a man wearing business attire quietly folded his newspaper. He wasn't reading. His eyes had remained on the rearview mirror since boarding. His name was Victor Hayes, former Army Ranger, now one of Adriano's most trusted security commanders. He touched the tiny microphone hidden beneath his collar. "Vehicle still following." A calm voice answered through his earpiece. "We see it. Federal? Most likely." Victor glanced toward Adriano. The boss hadn't reacted. He already knew. Of course he did. For 6 months, Adriano had noticed the FBI following the bus. Different vehicles, different agents, always the same mistake. They watched him, never the passengers, never realizing that nearly half the people riding bus 27 each morning were his security detail, disguised as ordinary commuters. A florist, a university student, a retired accountant, a young mother, every one of them trained, everyone willing to die. Because this bus carried the only person who had ever made Adriano feel normal. Mia suddenly laughed. "What? You know what's funny?" "What?" "I still don't know your name." He looked genuinely surprised. "You never asked. I figured you'd tell me eventually." "And yet," she smiled, "here we are." He considered lying. He had lied to presidents, to judges, to enemies, to allies. But somehow, lying to Mia felt different. "My name is Adrian." Not entirely false. Just incomplete. She repeated it softly. "Adrian. It suits you." "Does it?" "You look like someone from an old novel." He almost smiled. "And you? What about me?" You look like someone who forgets to take care of herself. She laughed. That's rude. It's observant. She looked down at the coffee stain on her hoodie, the wrinkle in one sleeve, the dark circles beneath her eyes. Okay, you win. The bus slowed near Lincoln Park. An elderly woman struggled to board carrying 3 heavy grocery bags. Before anyone else moved, Mia was already standing. Here, I've got them. The old woman smiled gratefully. Oh, sweetheart, you don't have to. I know. She took the bags anyway. Adriano watched quietly. Again, no hesitation, no performance. She simply helped because someone needed help. As Mia returned to her seat, she found her coffee waiting. Still warm. She frowned. You moved it. It would have spilled. You noticed? You almost tripped. When? 20 seconds ago. She blinked. I didn't even notice. I did. For reasons he couldn't explain. He always did. Outside, Rebecca Collins watched through binoculars. Something bothered her. She had expected meetings, encrypted exchanges, money, weapons. Instead, the most feared mafia boss in America appeared to be. Talking, laughing, reading books, helping elderly women onto buses. It made no sense. Her partner frowned. Maybe it isn't him. Rebecca shook her head. No, it has to be. Then why would a man worth billions ride public transportation? She stared at the bus. I don't think he's riding the bus. Her partner looked confused. What do you mean? Rebecca slowly lowered the binoculars. I think he's riding with someone. Bus 27 reached Michigan Avenue. Morning traffic thickened. The city awakened around them. Coffee shops filled. Office workers crossed crowded sidewalks. Street musicians unpacked instruments beneath dripping awnings. It all felt wonderfully ordinary. For Adriano, ordinary had become priceless. He owned skyscrapers, casinos, shipping ports, private islands. None of them brought him peace. Only these 32 minutes beside a nurse who believed he solved problems for a living. Mia glanced toward the novel still resting on his lap. You always read classics. They last longer. What does that mean? People stop talking about trends. They never stop talking about truth. She considered that. So books survive. So do memories. She smiled softly. I think that's beautiful. He looked away before answering. I think you're beautiful. The words escaped before he could stop them. Silence. The entire world seemed to disappear. Rain, traffic, passengers, everything. Mia looked at him. He looked back. Neither spoke. Finally, he quietly cleared his throat. I meant the way you think. She smiled. I know what you meant. Did she? He wasn't sure anymore. At the next stop, a sharply dressed woman boarded the bus. Tall, elegant, red coat, diamond earrings. She walked directly toward the middle aisle. Stopped. Her eyes landed on Adriano. For one terrifying second, recognition flashed across her face. Not admiration. Fear. Real fear. She whispered, Mr. DeLuca. Adriano's expression never changed. But Victor Hayes had already stood. 2 other passengers subtly shifted positions. Another quietly reached beneath his jacket. Mia looked between them. You know each other? The woman quickly forced a smile. I'm sorry. I mistaken him for someone else. She hurried toward the back. Adriano remained perfectly still. But inside, his heartbeat slowed only after she sat down. Mia tilted her head. That was strange. It happens. Does it? More often than you'd think. She wasn't convinced. Neither was he. 5 minutes later, the elegant woman quietly exited the bus 3 stops early. The moment she stepped onto the sidewalk, she pulled out a satellite phone. Her hands were trembling. A voice answered immediately. Report. She swallowed. I found him. Silence. Where? Bus 27. Was he alone? Another pause. No. There was a woman. The voice became colder. Describe her. Plus size. Nurse. Brown hair. Gray hoodie. Silence filled the line. Then, the voice quietly said something that froze the woman's blood. find out who she is. If she matters to Adriano, she becomes our leverage. The call disconnected. Across the street, a pair of black luxury sedans slowly turned around. Their destination had just changed. Back on the bus, Mia checked her watch. Miss Stop. She stood reluctantly. So soon? My hospital doesn't save lives without me. He nodded. I suppose it doesn't. She smiled. See you tomorrow? His answer came without hesitation. I'll be here. She stepped toward the exit. Just before the doors opened, she turned around. Adrian? Yes? You never miss a day. No. Why? For the first time, his carefully built composure cracked. Not visibly, only inside. Because the truthful answer was standing only a few feet away. Because you're here. Instead, he simply smiled. I like the route. The bus doors opened. Mia laughed. I don't believe you. Then, she disappeared into the crowd. Adriano remained seated long after she was gone, watching through the rain-covered window until she vanished completely. Only then did he close his eyes. The bus suddenly felt empty. 32 minutes were over. The Mafia boss returned. The bus rolled one more block before stopping at an abandoned warehouse district. No passengers boarded. No passengers exited. Except one. Adriano stood. The driver never looked back. Instead, he quietly spoke. Good day, boss. Adriano nodded once. Thank you, Frank. The old bus driver smiled. See you tomorrow. Outside. 6 black armored SUVs silently emerged from different streets. Bodyguards surrounded him within seconds. The quiet man with the paperback novel disappeared. In his place stood the most feared ruler in Chicago. Marco Romano, his longtime consigliere, opened the rear door of the lead SUV. You enjoyed your morning? Adriano looked back toward the direction Bus 27 had disappeared. For several moments, he said nothing, then quietly answered. It ended too soon. Marco smiled knowingly. You should tell her. Adriano entered the vehicle. No. Why not? He looked through the rain-streaked window, his expression becoming cold once more. Because the moment Mia Bennett learns who I really am, those 32 minutes will never belong to us again. As the convoy pulled away, neither man noticed the black sedan parked across the street. Inside sat Damien Moretti, watching, smiling, holding a photograph of Mia Bennett. The hunt had begun. By the time Mia Bennett finished her shift, the rain had returned. Not the violent storm from the night before. This rain was softer, persistent, the kind that settled over Chicago like a memory refusing to fade. She pulled her hoodie tighter around herself and stepped out of Mercy General Hospital just after 4 in the afternoon. Her feet hurt. Her back ached. She had spent 12 hours comforting strangers while pretending she wasn't exhausted herself. Still, she smiled, because she remembered something. Coffee. Adrian had asked her for coffee. Outside the bus. For the first time, she glanced across the street. A tiny independent cafe sat on the corner. Warm lights glowed through fogged windows. She checked her phone. 4:07 p.m. He hadn't said where. Or when. Maybe. He hadn't meant today. Mia laughed quietly at herself. You're overthinking this. She turned to leave. A deep voice behind her stopped her. I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind. She turned. There he was, standing beneath a black umbrella, dark charcoal overcoat, black scarf, one hand tucked casually into his pocket, the other holding a second umbrella. No bodyguards, no expensive car, just Adrian. He walked toward her at an unhurried pace. I wasn't sure if nurses finished on time. She smiled. We usually don't. I noticed. You've been waiting for 23 minutes. She blinked. You counted? I always count. She laughed. That's oddly specific. It's a habit. He opened the second umbrella and handed it to her. I thought you might need this. She looked at it. You brought me an umbrella? You usually give yours away. She stared at him. You remember that? I remember everything about you. The sentence hung between them. Too intimate. Too honest. For a brief second, Adriano wished he could take it back. Instead, Mia smiled, not because it frightened her, because nobody had ever said something like that with such quiet sincerity. The cafe was small, independent, filled with old books stacked on wooden shelves. Jazz drifted softly through hidden speakers. It smelled of cinnamon and fresh coffee beans. Mia looked around happily. You found my favorite place. I hoped I had. You've been here before? No. She frowned. Then how did you know? He almost smiled. You mentioned it. When? 2 months ago. She laughed again. Seriously? You said they make the best caramel latte in Chicago. I really talk that much? Only when you're comfortable. They chose a quiet table beside the rain-covered window. For the first time, they sat facing each other instead of side by side. It felt strangely different. More personal. The waitress approached. What can I get for you? Mia smiled. Large caramel latte. The waitress turned toward Adriano. And for you, black coffee. No sugar. No cream. The waitress nodded. As she walked away, Mia tilted her head. You always drink black coffee. I do. You don't like sweet things? He looked directly into her eyes. I've discovered one exception. Heat rose into Mia's cheeks. She quickly looked toward the window. You flirt differently than most people. I apologize. I didn't say I disliked it. Across the street, a black sedan rolled slowly past the cafe. Then another. Neither stopped. Neither needed to. Inside the first vehicle, Victor Hayes quietly lowered a pair of binoculars. Boss is inside. The voice in his earpiece answered immediately. Maintain distance. No interference. Understood. 3 more security teams silently established a perimeter. Nobody entered the cafe without Adriano already knowing. What none of them realized was that another pair of eyes had already found them. From the rooftop across the street, a camera lens focused tightly on the cafe window. Click, click, click. Every smile, every glance, every movement. Photographed. The photographer lowered the camera. Target confirmed. A voice crackled through the encrypted radio. The woman? The boss smiled. Silence. Then one simple order. Don't lose her. Inside. The coffee arrived. Mia wrapped both hands around the warm cup. I've always wondered something. What? Why do you always ride the bus? Adriano took a slow sip of coffee. I don't like being driven. She laughed. I don't believe that. You shouldn't. So, he looked out toward the rain. My father believed people stopped seeing the world once they sat behind tinted windows. She watched him carefully. He sounds wise. He wasn't. Silence. He was dangerous. The warmth disappeared from his voice. Mia noticed immediately. You don't have to talk about him. I'm not. Another silence settled between them. She understood. Whatever history he carried, it still hurt. To change the subject, she reached toward the bookshelf beside their table. Her fingers landed on a worn novel, Pride and Prejudice. She smiled. My favorite. Adriano looked surprised. You've read Austen? 7 times. He raised an eyebrow. 7? I like people who fall in love slowly. His heartbeat stumbled. Why? Because she traced a finger across the cover. Fast feelings are easy. She looked back at him. Trust takes time. Neither of them spoke after that. Neither needed to. Meanwhile, 20 floors above the city, Damian Moretti studied the photographs arriving on his tablet. Photo after photo. The same woman. The same cafe. The same man. He enlarged one image. Adriano. Smiling. His expression slowly darkened. I've known him 20 years. His consigliere looked confused. So, I've never seen him smile. He zoomed in closer. The smile wasn't forced. It wasn't political. It wasn't strategic. It was real. Damian whispered. So that's your weakness. Back at the cafe, Mia noticed Adriano staring absent-mindedly out the window. You disappear sometimes. What do you mean? You'll be here. She gently pointed toward him, and then suddenly you're somewhere else. He considered the question. I've spent a long time expecting bad things. She nodded slowly. So you never really relax? No, not completely. She smiled softly. I hope one day you can. He looked at her. I already have. She frowned. What? I relax here. Her breathing caught. You barely know me. I know enough. Silence. The jazz music faded into the background. Outside, rain continued falling against the glass. Inside, time itself seemed to slow. Then, the cafe television suddenly interrupted its afternoon programming. Breaking news. The volume increased automatically. Everyone looked up. The reporter stood outside a burning warehouse. Police lights flashed behind her. We have confirmed another violent confrontation between rival organized crime groups early this afternoon. Mia watched absent-mindedly until the reporter continued. Authorities continue searching for Chicago crime syndicate leader Adriano DeLuca. A digital sketch appeared on the screen. Not a photograph, only an artist's approximation. Dark hair, sharp yath, sweet, powerful eyes. Mia glanced casually toward Adriano, then back toward the television. Something didn't quite fit. The sketch looked familiar, very familiar. She slowly turned back toward him. He remained perfectly calm. Too calm. Almost. Prepared. The television continued. Officials warned citizens that Adriano DeLuca is considered extremely dangerous. Mia looked at the man sitting across from her, reading his coffee cup instead of the television, as though he already knew every word being spoken. Her heartbeat quietly accelerated, not from fear, from curiosity. The resemblance wasn't perfect, but it existed. She smiled nervously. You know, he looked up. What? She laughed awkwardly. For a second, I thought that sketch looked a little like you. The entire cafe suddenly felt silent. Even the rain seemed to stop. Outside, Victor Hayes instinctively reached for the pistol beneath his jacket. Across the street, the hidden photographer immediately lifted the camera again, 20 floors above. Damien Moretti leaned forward in his chair, watching the live security feed with growing anticipation. Inside the cafe, Adriano slowly set down his coffee cup. His expression never changed. His voice remained calm. Do you think? He held Mia's gaze without blinking. I look like a criminal? Mia searched his eyes. Those impossibly calm eyes. The kind she had never seen panic, never seen anger, never seen fear. Only quiet, only restraint, only loneliness. She smiled. No, I think. She reached across the table and gently turned his coffee cup toward him. You look like someone who's been carrying something heavy for a very long time. For the first time in years, Adriano DeLuca forgot how to breathe, because she had looked straight through the mask. Not the Mafia boss, not the lie, the man beneath it. And somewhere beyond the cafe windows, someone squeezed a camera shutter. The flash reflected faintly against the rain-streaked glass. Adriano's eyes shifted instantly. He saw it. Someone was watching. His peaceful world had just been found. Adriano saw the camera flash. Only once, barely visible against the rain. To anyone else, it would have looked like a reflection from a passing car. To him, it was a warning. His eyes shifted toward the cafe window without moving his head. 4th floor, the old insurance building across the street, southwest corner. Someone was behind the glass, watching, photographing. His pulse remained perfectly steady. Inside, every instinct sharpened. Outside, Victor Hayes saw Adriano's gaze change. That was all the confirmation he needed. His voice remained almost inaudible. Possible surveillance. Immediately, 4 undercover agents began moving, not toward the cafe, toward the building across the street. Quietly, without drawing attention, Mia noticed the subtle change. Adrian, he turned back to her. His calm smile returned, almost convincing. Yes, you disappeared again. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize. She stirred her coffee slowly. She hesitated. Sometimes it feels like you're always listening to something I can't hear. His expression softened. Old habits. What kind of habits? The kind that keep people alive. She laughed nervously. There you go again. What? Answering questions without actually answering them. He lowered his eyes. You're right. Silence settled between them. For the first time, he hated lying. Across the street, the photographer packed away his camera. Mission complete. He never saw Victor Hayes enter the building. Never noticed two more security operatives quietly blocking the exits. The elevator doors opened. Victor stepped inside. The photographer smiled politely. Afternoon. Victor smiled back. Afternoon. The doors closed. The elevator stopped on the ground floor. The photographer walked out. 3 men were waiting. No guns. No shouting. One simply held out his hand. Camera. The photographer hesitated. Victor Sahil, please don't make this difficult. The man reached into his jacket. Before he could touch the concealed pistol, Victor twisted his wrist. The weapon fell to the floor. Everything ended in less than 4 seconds. The photographer never fired a shot. Inside the cafe, Mia checked the time. I should go. Adriano nodded. I'll walk you. You don't have to. I know. I live 3 blocks away. I know. She smiled. You remember everything. No. He looked at her quietly. I remember you. The rain had become lighter. They shared the umbrella without speaking. Their shoulders occasionally brushed against one another. Neither moved away. The silence between them felt strangely intimate. Not empty. Comfortable. At the corner crosswalk, Mia suddenly stopped. What? She looked across the street. A little boy stood crying beside a busy intersection. Maybe 5 years old. No parents nearby. Traffic surged through the green light. Without thinking, Mia hurried toward him. Adriano reacted instantly. Mia. She didn't stop. The child was frightened. Nothing else mattered. From the rooftop opposite the intersection, a rifle scope shifted. Crosshairs settled. Not on Adriano. On Mia. A quiet voice spoke into a radio. The woman is exposed. Another voice answered. Wait. The sniper frowned. Orders? We need confirmation. Don't shoot. Mia knelt beside the little boy. Hey. It's okay. Where's your mom? The child pointed vaguely toward the crowd. I can't find her. She smiled warmly. We'll find her. She reached for his hand. At that exact second, Adriano looked upward. Something caught his attention. Not movement. Absence. One rooftop. One broken window. One tiny reflection. Glass. A scope. His eyes widened. Mia. She turned. Too late. Adriano sprinted. The sound of the gunshot echoed across the intersection. Time slowed. Pedestrians screamed. The bullet never reached Mia. Adriano tackled her onto the wet pavement. The round shattered a traffic light behind them instead. Glass exploded overhead. Rain mixed with falling sparks. Mia stared at him in shock. What? Stay down. His voice wasn't calm anymore. It was commanding. Cold. Absolute. For the first time, she heard the man hidden beneath Adrian. Chaos erupted. 3 ordinary pedestrians suddenly pulled pistols from beneath their jackets. A woman pushing a stroller dropped the handle. The stroller was empty. Inside, an assault rifle. A delivery driver abandoned his van. 2 motorcyclists blocked the intersection. Within seconds, the entire street transformed into a battlefield. Mia looked around in disbelief. What is happening? Adriano shielded her with his own body. Don't look. But look at me. She did. His face was inches from hers. Rain streamed down his forehead. His breathing remained controlled. Despite bullets striking parked cars nearby, he cupped the back of her head protectively. You trust me? Another burst of gunfire interrupted her. I need an answer. She searched his eyes. For reasons she couldn't explain, she nodded. Yes. Good. Close your eyes. Victor Hayes' voice exploded through the radio. Sniper neutralized. Another guard shouted. Second team approaching from the alley. A black SUV skidded sideways across the intersection. Its armored doors opened before the vehicle stopped moving. 4 heavily armed men emerged. Not attacking, protecting. creating a moving shield around Adriano. People across the street stared in horror. Who was this man? Why were trained soldiers risking their lives for him? Mia whispered, Adrian. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry. For what? For this. The lead bodyguard reached them. Boss. One word. Nothing more. Mia froze. Boss? Adriano closed his eyes briefly. The word had slipped out. There was no taking it back. Mia looked from the bodyguard to Adriano. Back again. Her heartbeat thundered inside her chest. Boss? Nobody answered. Nobody needed to. Because just then, police sirens echoed through downtown. The sniper attack had become impossible to hide. Across the street, television crews were already arriving. News helicopters circled overhead. Reporters rushed toward the growing crowd. One cameraman zoomed in, directly onto Adriano's face. Victor Hayes reacted instantly. He smashed the camera lens with the butt of his pistol. Too late. One frame had already been transmitted. Across Chicago, hundreds of phones vibrated simultaneously. The image spread through encrypted criminal networks. One message accompanied it. DeLuca has been found. Mia stared at Adriano. You. She couldn't finish. Everything suddenly made sense. The expensive coat, the impossible memory, the constant awareness, the mysterious job, the people secretly protecting him, the sketch on television. Her voice barely emerged. Who are you? He looked at her. Not the Mafia boss. Not the legend. Only the man who had shared 32 mornings with her. My name, he swallowed, is Adriano DeLuca. The world around Mia disappeared. She had heard that name countless times. Hospital staff whispered it. Police officers cursed it. Television reporters feared it. The invisible king of Chicago, the man every agency hunted, the most dangerous criminal in the city. She took one step backward, then another. No. Her eyes filled with disbelief. No. Adriano didn't move toward her. He knew better. Instead, he stood perfectly still, allowing her space, allowing her to choose. I never lied about who I am. She looked at him in shock. You called yourself Adrian. I did. That's not your name. It is. She frowned. My mother was the only person who ever called me Adrian. Silence. I wanted. His voice cracked for the first time. To hear it again. Mia looked at the man standing before her. The feared Mafia boss. The quiet stranger from the bus. The man who remembered her coffee order. The man who bought strangers breakfast. The man who had just taken a bullet's path without hesitation. They were all the same person. She didn't know which frightened her more, or which one she believed. A black armored SUV rolled to the curb. Marco Romano stepped out. Boss. Adriano never took his eyes off Mia. What? We have to leave. He nodded slowly, then looked back at her. I'm sorry. For everything, for every lie, for every morning that was never as ordinary as it seemed. Mia said nothing. She couldn't. He stepped into the SUV. The convoy disappeared into Chicago traffic, leaving Mia alone beneath the rain, still holding the frightened little boy's hand. The next morning, 4:43 RM, bus route 27 arrived exactly on time. Frank opened the doors. Passengers climbed aboard. Seat 17, window side, empty. Mia stood in the aisle for a long moment. She could have chosen any seat. Instead, she quietly sat beside the empty window. The novel Adriano had been reading still rested there. A bookmark remained tucked halfway through the pages. Inside the cover, she found a handwritten note. It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. It simply read, for 32 minutes every morning, you gave me a life that didn't belong to a mafia boss. Thank you for reminding me who Adrian could have been. Tears filled Mia's eyes. She closed the book against her chest. Outside the bus window, a familiar black SUV remained parked exactly 1 block away. Hidden, watching, not because Adriano expected her to come back, but because even after losing the only ordinary part of his life, he still intended to make sure she arrived safely, even if she never spoke to him again. And somewhere else in the city, Damian Moretti smiled as he studied Mia's hospital employee file. He no longer needed to hunt Adriano. He had found something far more valuable. The only woman capable of breaking the devil's heart. 3 mornings passed. 3 identical mornings. 3 painfully empty bus rides. Every day at exactly 6:43 a.m. Bus Route 27 pulled away from the curb. Seat 17. Window side. Empty. Frank, the elderly driver, noticed before anyone else. On the first day, he looked toward the empty seat in the mirror. On the second, he sighed quietly. On the third, he finally spoke. "No book today?" Mia looked up. "What?" "The gentleman. He always read." Silence. She forced a smile. "I don't think he'll be coming back." Frank nodded sadly. "I figured." He didn't ask questions. Bus drivers learned long ago that some stories revealed themselves only when people were ready. Mia still sat in the same seat, not because she expected Adriano, because she couldn't bring herself to choose another. She rested the worn copy of The Old Man and the Sea on her lap. His bookmark remained exactly where he had left it. Sometimes, she opened it just to see his handwriting again. For 32 minutes every morning, "You gave me a life that didn't belong to a mafia boss." She had read the sentence so many times she no longer needed to unfold the note. She knew every letter, every pause, every word. She hated him. She missed him. Both feelings existed together. Neither won. At Mercy General Hospital, life refused to slow down. An ambulance arrived every few minutes. Children with broken bones, heart attacks, overdoses, violence, hope, loss. The emergency room never cared whether someone's heart had been broken. It simply demanded another patient, another life, another decision. Mia buried herself in work, because work didn't ask painful questions. Across the city, Adriano DeLuca stood inside the top floor of DeLuca Tower, 43 stories above Chicago. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline. Helicopters circled in the distance. Luxury stretched in every direction. Italian marble, rare artwork, handmade furniture, everything money could buy, everything except peace. Marco Romano entered quietly. "You haven't touched breakfast." "I'm not hungry." "You've canceled 6 meetings." "I'm aware." "You've also watched Bus 27's security feed every morning." Adriano remained silent. Marco walked toward the window. "You miss her." "No." Marco smiled faintly. "You stopped lying to everyone else years ago." He looked directly at Adriano. "Don't start lying to yourself." Adriano finally spoke. "I built an empire." "Yes." "I survived 4 assassination attempts." "Yes." "I negotiated peace between families that had hated each other for generations." Marco nodded. "And?" "I have no idea how to convince one nurse to forgive me." Marco couldn't help smiling. "That's because she's more dangerous than all your enemies combined." For the first time in days, a tiny smile appeared. Only for a second, then disappeared. Elsewhere, Damian Moretti stared at a hospital blueprint spread across a long oak table. 20 armed men surrounded him. None spoke. A photograph of Mia rested in the center. He tapped it once. "This woman." One lieutenant nodded. "The nurse." "No." Damian smiled coldly. "The key." He turned another photograph toward them. It showed Adriano shielding Mia from the sniper. Blood soaking through his shoulder. "The devil of Chicago," he whispered, stood in front of a bullet. He looked around the room. "That tells us everything." One soldier frowned. "You want her kidnapped?" Damian shook his head. "No. If we touch hair." He smiled. Adriano becomes predictable. 3 days later, the rain returned. Chicago seemed unable to decide between spring and winter. Mia finished another overnight shift. Instead of walking toward the bus stop, she wandered through a small used bookstore 2 blocks away. The smell of old paper calmed her. Books had always been safer than people. She browsed quietly until one title caught her eye. The Count of Monte Cristo. She smiled. He would have liked this. Without realizing it, She had begun choosing books she imagined Adriano would recommend. That thought hurt more than she expected. A voice behind her interrupted the silence. Excellent choice. Mia Froze. Slowly, she turned around. Not Adriano. An elderly gentleman with silver hair and round glasses smiled warmly. You've read it? She nodded. Years ago. It's my favorite. The old man chuckled. Mine too. He glanced toward the novel. My son introduced me to it. You have children? I had one. Pastinze. Mia noticed. I'm sorry. The old man smiled sadly. He disappeared many years ago. Before Mia could respond, he quietly added, sometimes people disappear because they believe it's the only way to protect the people they love. Those words landed heavily, almost too heavily. She looked at him carefully. Something about his eyes felt strangely familiar. Before she could ask another question, he tipped his hat politely. I hope whoever you're waiting for finds his way back. Then he walked away. Mia watched him disappear between the bookshelves. When she hurried after him, he was gone. 20 minutes later, Marco entered Adriano's office carrying a security report. Boss. What? We have confirmation. Adriano looked up. Of what? Your father visited her. Silence. Long silence. He wasn't supposed to. He ignored our surveillance. Adriano slowly stood. My father spoke to Mia? Briefly. What did he say? Marco handed him a transcript gathered from hidden microphones inside the bookstore. Adriano read every word. By the final sentence. His hands tightened around the paper. He shouldn't have involved her. Marco quietly answered, Your father believes she's the only person capable of changing your future. Adriano looked toward the rain. My father forfeited the right to decide my future 20 years ago. That evening, Mia finally boarded bus 27 again. Not for work, just to think. The bus was almost empty. She sat in seat 17. Habit. Nothing more. As the city lights drifted past, she noticed something tucked beneath the seat. A folded envelope. No name. No stamp. Just one pressed white lily inside. Her heartbeat quickened. She opened the note. It contained only one sentence. Some promises are easier to keep from a distance. No signature. She didn't need one. Her eyes filled with tears. You idiot, she whispered. You absolute idiot. She smiled despite herself. At that exact moment, a black SUV remained parked half a block away. Its windows were too dark to see inside, but Mia somehow knew. He was there, watching, not approaching, not speaking, simply making sure she reached home. She looked toward the SUV. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then, the headlights flashed once, only once. Not a signal anyone else would notice. Just enough. Mia slowly lifted the white lily, holding it against the window. Inside the SUV, Adriano saw it. His eyes closed. Relief washed over him. She hadn't thrown the flower away. She hadn't torn up the note. She wasn't ready to forgive him, but she wasn't ready to forget him either. Neither of them noticed the black motorcycle parked on the rooftop garage across the street. A sniper adjusted a high-powered scope. Crosshairs settled. Not on Adriano, not on Mia, on the bus itself. The assassin spoke quietly into his radio. Target confirmed. Damian Moretti answered immediately. No mistakes. The sniper inhaled slowly. When? Damian's voice became almost emotionless. Tomorrow morning, at exactly 6:43 分, the exact moment when two people who had once found peace on an ordinary city bus would unknowingly become the center of a war capable of bringing Chicago to its knees. At exactly 6:43 a.m., bus route 27 arrived, just as it had every weekday for the past 12 years. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving Chicago wrapped in a silver mist. The streets glistened beneath the first light of morning, and the city looked almost peaceful. Almost. Frank opened the bus doors. Morning. Passengers climbed aboard one by one. A college student with headphones, an elderly woman carrying flowers, a construction worker sipping coffee, A young mother pushing a stroller. Ordinary people. Ordinary lives. Mia stepped onto the bus last. Her eyes drifted automatically toward seat 17. Empty, she forced herself to smile. Maybe today, it wouldn't hurt as much. She sat beside the window anyway. The same place, the same view, the same silence, 2 blocks away. Inside a black armored SUV, Adriano watched the live GPS tracker of Bus 27 moving across the city. Marco looked over. You don't have to do this. I know. You've kept your distance. Yes. You protected her. Yes. Marco folded his arms. Then let her go. Adriano stared through the windshield. I've tried. And? He answered quietly. I fail every morning. On the rooftop of a nearby parking garage. A sniper adjusted his rifle. The suppressor absorbed the morning wind. Crosshairs settled. Not on Adriano. Not on Mia. On the front axle of Bus 27, the plan had changed. Damien Moretti understood Adriano too well. If Mia died, Adriano would become unstoppable. But if Adriano believed she might die because of him, he would reveal himself. That was the trap. The sniper whispered into his radio. Target in position. Damien answered calmly. Wait for the bridge. Bus 27 rolled onto the old steel bridge crossing the Chicago River. Morning traffic slowed. Construction barriers narrowed the lanes. There was nowhere to turn, nowhere to escape. Exactly as Damien had planned. Inside the bus, Mia looked out the window. She quietly whispered to herself, I hope you're okay. She wasn't sure why she said it. Maybe because loving someone didn't disappear simply because the truth frightened you. Maybe because she finally understood something. Adriano had never used the bus to hide. He had used it to remember what it felt like to laugh without bodyguards, to drink bad coffee, to discuss books, to be called Adrian, to be seen as a man, not a legend. Outside, the sniper exhaled. His finger tightened. Crack. The bullet struck the steering mechanism. Frank fought the wheel. What the? The bus violently swerved. Passengers screamed. Metal scraped against the bridge railing. A second shot exploded a front tire. The bus lurched sideways. Half of it broke through the guardrail. The front wheels hung over the icy river below. People cried. Glass shattered. The entire vehicle tilted dangerously. One more shift, and everyone would fall into the water. Traffic froze. Drivers abandoned their cars. Emergency calls flooded 911. Television helicopters turned toward the bridge. Inside the SUV, Marco's phone exploded with alerts. Boss, Adriano had already opened the door. He looked toward the bridge. The bus. Seat 17. Mia. Nothing else existed. He sprinted, ignoring security, ignoring orders, ignoring the dozens of armed men racing behind him. The bus groaned. Steel twisted. Children cried. Frank shouted, Nobody move! Nobody listened. A frightened passenger stood. The sudden shift caused the bus to tilt farther. People screamed. Mia reacted instantly. Everyone stay low. Her voice cut through the panic. I'm a nurse. Listen to me. She crawled toward a terrified little girl trapped beneath a fallen seat. It's okay. I've got you. The girl sobbed. I don't want to die. Mia smiled despite the danger. You won't. I promise. Outside, Adriano reached the bridge. Police officers tried to stop him. You can't go in there. He ignored them. One detective grabbed his arm. The bus is unstable. Adriano looked directly into his eyes. She's inside. Then he climbed over the twisted guardrail. Every television camera caught it. The mysterious businessman risking his life. Nobody recognized him, except one person. Special Agent Rebecca Collins. She stared at the live feed, then whispered in disbelief, Adriano. The bus shifted again. The front windshield cracked. Water splashed beneath the hanging nose of the vehicle. Time was running out. Adriano forced open the emergency exit. Passengers stared. One elderly woman gasped. It's him. No one answered. Because there wasn't time, he moved through the tilted aisle, helping people toward the rear, one after another. Children first, then the elderly, then everyone else. He reached Mia last, exactly where he knew she would be, still helping someone else, still refusing to leave. He almost laughed. You really are impossible. She looked up. So are you. Another loud crack echoed through the bridge. The support beam beneath the bus fractured. Marco shouted from outside, Boss, the bridge is failing. Adriano ignored him. He looked at Mia. We have to go. She shook her head. Not yet. He frowned. What? She pointed. Frank, the driver. His leg was trapped beneath the crushed dashboard. He had stayed behind to keep the emergency brake engaged. If he let go, the bus would plunge into the river. Adriano understood immediately. Without a word, he crawled toward Frank. Together, he and Mia lifted twisted steel while firefighters pulled the driver free. The instant Frank was rescued, the emergency brake snapped. The bus lurched forward. Jump. Adriano wrapped one arm around Mia, the other around Frank. They leaped through the rear exit just as the bus broke free. Bus Route 27 crashed into the freezing river below. A massive wave erupted beneath the bridge. The city watched in stunned silence. Hours later, news channels called it a miracle. Every passenger survived, not because of luck, because a nurse refused to abandon strangers, and a man everyone feared refused to abandon her. That evening, Chicago City Hall. Television cameras crowded the entrance. Mayor, police commissioner, FBI, reporters. Rebecca Collins stepped before the microphones. The investigation into Adriano DeLuca. She paused. Has officially concluded. Questions erupted. What does that mean? Is he innocent? Where is he? Rebecca answered carefully. The evidence recovered during the Moretti investigation confirms that Damian Moretti orchestrated the violence that plagued Chicago for years. She looked toward the cameras. As for Adriano DeLuca, a long silence. He voluntarily surrendered financial records, witness testimony, and intelligence that dismantled the remaining criminal networks. One reporter interrupted. So he's free? Rebecca chose her words carefully. No, he chose to disappear. 3 months later, spring returned. Bus Route 27 continued running every morning. Frank still drove. Seat 17 still overlooked the river. One rainy morning, Mia boarded carrying 2 coffees instead of 1. She smiled sadly. Old habits. She sat by the window. The bus stopped at the next station. A man stepped aboard wearing jeans, a navy jacket, and carrying a paperback novel. No bodyguards. No black SUVs. No expensive watch. Just Adrian. He looked healthier, lighter, almost peaceful. He stopped beside seat 17. Is this seat taken? Mia looked at him for several seconds, then quietly slid toward the window. I was beginning to think you'd changed your route. He smiled. I changed my life. He sat beside her. The bus began moving again. Neither spoke for a while. Rain traced soft lines across the glass. Finally, Mia handed him the second coffee. You still drink it black? I do. She laughed. I already knew. He looked at her. No security, no guns, no lies. She nodded. Good. He took a slow breath. My name is Adrian DeLuca. No more secrets. She reached for his hand. This time, he didn't hesitate. Their fingers intertwined naturally. Outside, the city rushed by exactly as it always had. Inside Bus 27, time slowed once more. Not because a mafia boss had escaped his empire, but because a man had finally become the person his mother always believed he could be. Frank glanced into the rearview mirror and smiled. Good to have you back. Adrian smiled. It's good to be home. The bus crossed the same bridge where everything had nearly ended. Morning sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the river below. Mia rested her head gently against Adrian's shoulder. He looked out the window and realized something that power, money, and fear had never taught him. The greatest escape of his life had never been from the police. It had been from the man he used to be. As bus route 27 disappeared into the waking city, two paper coffee cups rested side by side on the windowsill. One black, one caramel. Just like the two strangers who had once met by chance and found a future in the most ordinary place imaginable.